You probably know me better as IB Crazy. That's my flight handle. This is my antenna tutorial on selecting an antenna. At Video Aerial we make several antennas, but not every one is necessarily right for you. Antennas are mission specific, and that's the critical link from your aircraft to your ground station, so you need to choose it wisely. So what do you choose? Well, for most pilots, they probably should have a circularly polarized Omni antenna set. And honestly, probably 50% of the pilots, that's all they have. What we have here are the blue beam antennas. These come in an Omni and a whip. You have a 3-lobe cloverleaf for your airplane and a 4-lobe skew planar wheel for your receiver. Now these are circularly polarized, so they naturally reject multipath interference. Expected range should be about a mile, maybe 2 miles. Though it has been pushed much further than that, that's not typical. So expect a mile or two reliably from these antenna sets. But you also will not necessarily be able to duck behind objects. Trees, maybe a little bit, but houses and buildings are not necessarily a good idea when you're flying an Omni set. The great thing about these, though, is that they're plug and play. You simply throw it on the airplane, throw this one on your receiver, and you go fly, and you have a good time. However, if you're thinking about long range or other kind of ventures, you might want to choose a different receiver antenna than this skew planar wheel. The next step up from natural progression would be something like this 3-turn helical or this 8 dBi patch. It's about double, maybe a little bit more than double the range of this skew planar wheel if you're right center in the beam, and your beam width is now about 150 degrees wide. So anywhere between my two arms, it's as strong or stronger than this antenna. Since few pilots fly behind themselves, it's probably a good idea to have a mildly directional antenna. These will give you a range of about 5 miles, maybe more if you have a good RF environment, and they'll also allow you to punch through trees with impunity, and also allow you to punch through buildings and things, maybe even a hill, at fairly close range. I personally fly a 3-turn helical as one of my most commonly flown antennas, as you can see from my dual-band ground station behind me. But let's say you're looking for really long range, or you want to punch through 2 buildings, or you want to punch through a hill at 2 miles away. Well, then you've got something like the 5-turn helical or the crosshair antenna. Again, it's your call. The crosshair is a little bit more refined antenna, but its bandwidth is fairly narrow, so you need to keep within 30 megahertz of the specified band, where this helical is good for between 1500 megahertz and 900 megahertz. So you can use it for multiple channels, where the crosshair you really can't. Now, what's the beam width on these guys? Well, the beam width is about 105 degrees. So instead of being here where you are with a 3-turn of the patch, you're now about here, maybe here, with your 5-turn helical and your crosshair. It's fairly easy to aim that. Now, outside that beam, all it does is get weaker than this antenna. But within that beam, you might be good for 10 miles or more. To be honest, I have never even come close to the end of the range of either of these antennas, simply because my plane runs out of battery and or radio link before I get out there. But what about if you fly outside the beam? What about behind you? Can you fly behind yourself with a directional antenna? Of course you can. Just don't go too far. I mean, if you're intended to fly 1,000 feet behind you, you probably should have a skew planar wheel on your receiver. But if you just maybe want to fly to the side or 500 feet or 200 feet behind you, the directional antenna will do just fine. The video feed will get a little bit weak at times, but you should be able to do it without issue. Also, this is not the only thing that Video Aerial Systems does. We started out with linear antennas, and they still work great. Why go linear over circular? Well, you get a little bit more gain out of it, a little bit more range, but it's not as simple. It doesn't naturally reject multipath interference, so the setup's got to be a little bit more careful. And for linear, we've got the old-fashioned V, which is where I started my career, and then the biquad. That's a pretty good setup. Will give you a little bit more range than the cloverleaf crosshair. But again, your cloverleaf crosshair, 10 miles fairly easily, which most planes are not capable of 10 miles, because remember, 10 miles out means you've got to come 10 miles back. That's a very, very long-range flight for almost any FPV pilot. So, other than that, we're also a company about innovation, so keep an eye out for this little guy. I haven't released this yet, but you'll see it soon. It's called the Pentalobe Sphere. I'm hoping to release this in 2 to 3 months from the time of this tutorial, so hopefully we'll see some of these out there. But here, that's been a IB Crazy tutorial. Hopefully you understand. I'm always here to answer questions. Send me an email, drop me a line on FPV Lab or RC groups. I'm always available. And I support my products. If you really don't like your product, send it back to me. Or just, I'll verify it, verify that it works. Or hey, if it's not really for you, maybe I'll help you hook you up with something that does work. I'm always here for the FPV. That's how I started and that's how I intend to be. I'm IB Crazy, and keep your wings in the sky.